Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new CTO Talk. My name is Cornel Fătulescu. I'm Chief Platform Officer at Pentalog, meaning I'm in charge with products and technology aspects of Pentalog Group. And I'm very happy to have you here to this new CTO Talk, the kind of event where we stress our view, our understanding about the CTO role, and we invite technology leaders doing the work, doing the hard work, and see how they implement their responsibilities and how their activity looks like. My job mainly will be to address a key set of questions so that we have comparable answers in the end to all these sessions. And your job is going to be to ask your questions using the Q&A feature that our tooling is having. And hopefully our guests will enjoy the questions, and even if some of them sometimes are hard. And let's welcome to the stage Catalina. Catalina, please join us and tell us a few words about yourself.
Hi. Hello, I hope you can hear me all right and everything is good.
I can hear you.
Cool, perfect. So hi everyone, I'm Kata. I am a co-founder and CTO at nilo.health. I've been doing this for the past 3 years, and yeah, quite honored to be part of the of this series, and very excited for the talk and also for your questions. So feel free to ask anything that you think I might be able to provide more light on, or just share my experience.
Thank you, Catalina, for being with us. And I think you can say a few words about the company, because it seems to be in a special journey. So
sure, I can do that. So what we do at Nilo is we build a mental health support platform for employees within companies. So we are a B2B solution. Companies get a contract with us, and then their employees get access to the service for free. What they get access to is a wide range of mental health support tools, from more proactive to more acute situations. So we offer one-on-one sessions with psychologists or psychotherapists. We offer group sessions that are also led by the psychologists, and we're also developing our own digital content in various formats, again, together with the psychologists and scientifically backed to enable users to work on their mental health daily and to have an impact on their work life, but also on their personal life.
Wow, sounds great. Hope the audience here hears this, since we are in the domain where burnout is at its place, especially among the CTO people doing the job. So yeah, how do you define the role of CTO? How does it look like in your company?
So I've been part of the team from the beginning. So we are 3 co-founders. My co-founders had the idea, and they both have a business background. They studied together, and they needed someone technical to help with the implementation. So that's how they reached out to me. I was working in another health tech company at the time. So they just reached out to me. I thought a project is a great idea. And I always looked for companies where the work that I do in tech has an impact on people, a positive impact in the world. And I thought, what other more rewarding a topic than mental health. So I've been working on Nilo from the beginning, and the CTO role changed quite a lot. In the beginning, it just felt like some sort of side project that you just work on and do some stuff, and hopefully it works. But right now, after 2 funding rounds and almost 3 years of work, just for you to get an understanding of what the company size is, so maybe you can also relate to that. We are around 70 people in 2 offices in Munich and in Berlin. And my tech team is around 12 people at the moment. So I see my role as me being a servant to the team. So my main responsibilities are obviously building the team, so recruiting, finding the right people to complete our team, but also I'm a very hands-on CTO, I would say. Right now, mostly infrastructure, backend, development, security, but anything else that's necessary and where I could help and support my team, I'm always there to help. I personally think that as a tech leader, it's important to still be close to the work, to still be able to give relevant advice. So for me, it's important, between all the meetings and all the interviews, to still kind of check out the code, look at the pull request, see how everything is working, and not get too far away from what's happening, because I think then your view of things becomes way too abstract and maybe not concrete enough to support your team anymore.
You said something about servant. How does it look like? What's that as activity?
So what I meant is that I'm here to serve my team and to enable them to do the best work they can. I personally also believe that everybody that works in my team, but also in Nilo in general, they should, like, with their efforts, they should also get something personally out of it, right? So they should also be growing as either personally or also definitely professionally. So we are very focused on the team, on learning and sharing knowledge between us. And I see myself as an enabler of this process. Obviously, having built everything from the beginning and still keeping almost everything in my head, it's very important that I pass this along, and that I share the things that I worked on, or the things that I'm taking care of at the moment with the whole team, so they can understand the whole picture, but also at the same time on their individual platforms, support them in their learning journey. So this is a part of the servant part. So I'm there to serve my team and to help them grow. And as I said also before, to just enable them to do their best work. So make sure they have focused time, and make sure everybody knows what are the processes to interact with the development team, that they don't get bug reports every 5 minutes, that they can focus on what they're doing, that they are not overwhelmed and like running from sprint to sprint without having finished and being completely overwhelmed with things. We also take mental health very serious in our team. And it's important that we work focused, but in a sustainable way.
This seems to be very close to the team. If you, let's see an assumption, you change the company and you go to another company, you are the CTO, would you still try to be that close to your team, or you try to be, I don't know, more holistic and strategic and leave someone doing that for you?
So I've been, before Nilo, I've also been leading teams for the past, 5 years or so. They were, some of them were actually bigger than the team that I have right now. But I always try to be close to my team members, and make sure I understand where everybody is. And of course, right now at Nilo, for example, there are cases where there's a team lead for example, for mobile, and then I'm not responsible, or I'm not under direct reporting line for every mobile developer, but there is someone in between. Throughout my career, I realized quite early on that startups is where I feel most comfortable. So I don't really see myself in a big company. Probably the role would change if it would be a big company. But I really appreciate the excitement working in a startup brings, and the fact that you have usually 2 less people for the work that you have to do, or for the roles that you want to fill. And then everybody extends, or whoever is interested, extends just a little bit over their role, and can try out different things and maybe discover other passions, or let's say try out different technologies where they are, they might be very interested in. And throughout my career in my previous companies, in startups is where I got the chance to first lead a team and take on more responsibility. And I think that's very, very exciting. And
you've said something about technology. Traditionally, the leaders in technology jobs were translating business opportunities to the technology, from the technology team to the business, and the other way around. So how much of your role is about translating opportunity, risks, making more value out of it, out of technology?
Yeah, I think it's quite a big part. I like to see this as like from two different angles. First of all, and this is something that in my, if you would have asked me like 4 or 5 years ago, these words would never come out of my mouth. But I realized at some point during the beginning of Nilo that we as a company are not a technology company. We are a product company. Technology is there to enable the product, and everything we do on the tech side needs to be motivated by some sort of an impact that we have on our stakeholders, being the users, being the companies, being the HR departments, being the therapists. So I think that this is something that I put a lot of emphasis on, especially in the interviews and especially with very senior people, because I think as a senior, you tend to be, I was at least, a bit more focused on the technology and not so much on the outcome or what happens with it afterwards. And for us, it's very, very important that what we do has an impact, and we are improving people's mental health with what we're doing. So that being said, I see the translation part. So from the business side to the tech people, that they understand this is what we are trying to build, and this is what we're focusing on. And we had people in the interviews that did not see this as a fit for them, and that's totally fine. And then on the other side, from the tech side to the business side, I have to say that at Nilo is something, it sounds very subjective, but it's something quite special that I didn't have in other companies, which is that the fact that everybody's so motivated by the topic that we work on, mainly mental health and breaking the stigma around mental health, that it feels much more easy to kind of push in the same direction. So we have very little, for example, conflicts between sales and tech. This happened, I worked in B2B companies before, and sometimes it was the case, sale was promising something and then tech had to like completely redo the roadmap so that they can cover that case. This is not happening at Nilo, and we are much more in sync because we see, the main focus is this, tackling mental health challenges and removing or fighting the stigma surrounding the topic.
You think this is because the culture of the company, the values of the positive impact you are
I think so
built
too
as a company, or
yeah, I think so too. So obviously in the beginning, and also we're not very, very big at the moment either, but in the beginning, everybody that joined us mostly joined us for the topic and for the impact that they wanted to have, and them being motivated by what we are actually working on. Because as you probably know, early stage startups cannot really pay a like the same salary as a big company, right? So that was also for us in the beginning quite a good screening process, because we only got people that were really passionate about the topic, and that made a big difference in the culture of our team, and also in aligning everybody without so much effort. That being said, now that the company is growing, obviously this doesn't stand on its own for too long. So we are close to 70. It's still pretty good, but it is something like culture is something that we are actively investing in. And we know that is something that you have to take care of, especially after a certain size.
And you said something, I'm getting back to something you said previously. You said something that 4 or 5 years ago, if I would have asked you the same question, you would have given us a totally different answer. So now, if you think about your team, your developers, how do you think they feel? Do they feel like, is it like your vision, or they are still thinking kind of tech?
So when it comes to senior developers, as I mentioned, I always share this view in the interview process so that they know what to expect and that they are aligned with it, because I think otherwise it's not going to work. Otherwise, we will just be bumping heads and it's not pleasant for anybody. So we do have quite some senior developers in the team that we are aligned on this. Apart from this, us as a team are very focused on learning and supporting. So we have a lot of team members that did a career switch. I think even more than 50%. We also have 70% female developers. I find that the motivation someone brings when they are really passionate about learning and really grateful for the opportunity to to learn more and to actually practice what they are passionate about, that makes a very big difference in how the team works. Because, for example, things that for me were before, let's say, maybe not a nightmare, but something that I wouldn't really want to do, like some sort of UI, CSS stuff, which is not my thing, and I don't have the patience for it anymore. We have colleagues that really put effort in it, and they pay so much attention to detail. And for me, when building a team, finding the right fit between the role and the people, it's something that's very, very important. And I think when you make it work, it really creates a really nice team atmosphere.
Okay. And you said you co-founded the company, you're one out of three co-founders. Because I have a question about the partnership with the executives, so and the executive officer, and how is it working for you?
Also, our relationship evolved a lot over the past 3 years. So from us three working on everything kind of together. So I was responsible for tech, my co-founder Ines for product and psychology, and our other co-founder Jonas for sales and finance. But basically for the first year, we were all doing everything. So everybody was also testing and also contributing to the sales pitch and everything in between. So we did meet in Munich, but early on in 2020, we were part of an incubator in Berlin. So my co-founders moved there. So since the beginning, we've been working remote. And that was one of the first challenges that we had to address. How do we keep in sync when we are not physically in the same place all the time, or very rarely, let's say it like this. Afterwards, when we started growing the team and we had all these new people coming into the team, taking on new roles, at least for me personally, one big challenge was to let go of things. Not in terms of, let's say, I don't know, projects on the tech side, but more in the beginning, you care about everything because you're part of everything and things move quite slow. But after a while, you have someone, for example, responsible for product or responsible for design. And of course, you still have your opinions and you think, I don't know, blue is better than green or whatever, but it's not your responsibility anymore. And you hired other people to take that from you. So beginning of 2021, that was a challenge, at least for me, with my co-founders, but also together with the whole team, to more clearly define the roles and for me to realize, okay, what is the part that I can bring most value to, which in my case is tech, and the rest, of course, I can say my opinion, but I also cannot be involved in anything, and also I don't know everything. So that was quite a process. And yeah, right now with the big team that we have right now, yeah, we try to keeping in sync. It's still a challenge, I would say, our biggest challenge, because we are still remote, and figuring out what topics are worth discussing together, what topics can be discussed offline. This is a constant process for us. But one thing that I see it working differently than in the companies that I was part of before, the fact that we are 3 co-founders and the CTO is one of them, and we've been working closer together from the beginning. Let's say I had the chance to explain my co-founders what or how I see a tech team working the best, like how you need focus time, and how when you make a release and something is not working, it's not the end of the world, and nothing is burning burning down, and you achieve much more things if you have a calm attitude and just not ask someone and call them every 5 minutes. So we went over this in the beginning, and it set some expectations about what do we see, how does tech work like, and how do we structure the processes. And there I have their full support and their full trust to set up the team and the processes, of course, also with the product and design team together. But to support that in a way that I see it working the best.
So it seems you started on the right foot, but what about today, the time spent together, for example, working on preparing stuff, working on the strategy together? How much time do you overall do you spend with them, for example?
Yes, so we're in constant communication. As I said, some topics we tackle offline, and some topics we just have a jump on a quick call. I do have a different relationship with both of them. So my co-founder Ines, she's still responsible for product and psychology. Her being responsible for product brings us closer together because more higher level topics related to product development we discuss together. So we at least have a meeting every week. We work for 2 quarters now. This is the second one with OKRs, where we align also on what is important for us as a company. And the 3 of us set the 3 business KPIs, and then every department derives from there how they can contribute to moving those numbers.
Okay. I'll get back to the OKRs and things like this, but we have a question because you said something about focus and allowing the team to focus. Someone is asking us, how do you make sure the individual contributors have the focus time they need? How do you?
Yes. So first of all, when someone new starts in the company, we have 4 main onboarding sessions led by us, the co-founders. One is related to Nilo and the vision, and then each one of us for their particular topic has an onboarding. So that means there's also a technical onboarding where I explain the infrastructure, but I also explain, and this is one of the biggest part of the presentation, I also explain how do you interact with the tech team, you not being part of the tech team. So what is the process? How do you contact us? Where do you send your requests?
So you are part of the onboarding of everyone in the company also, not just your tech team.
Yes. There's a more generic onboarding that's relevant for everybody, kind of how do you use the platform, how do you create demo accounts, stuff like that. Security and data privacy, because this is very important for us as we deal with quite sensitive data. And one part of it is them understanding the release process. So what happens, kind of when are things live? How do I check them out? And the other most important thing is, how do I report things that are broken or that I think are broken, or if I have some requests, where do I put them? And that we have in place, and everybody's made aware of it, and sometimes they forget. So I'm always there to say, okay, nice that you wrote me, but please send this via this type form or via this channel. And I encourage my team every time to also do the same. So I always say, if someone writes you on Slack, tell them to write in a shared channel or to send a bug report. Nobody should be writing you directly unless they're inviting you for a coffee chat or something like this. This is very important for me. And I mentioned that it's not because we're unfriendly or whatever, but it makes a very big difference in terms of the quality of our work if you're not interrupted every 5 minutes. And I think every developer in here knows how that's like, and how many times you forgot a return, or I don't know, some sort of try catch because someone interrupted you in the wrong time. And yeah, I see, of course, it's part of an educating the team that's not part of tech, but I see it as something very important for us.
Very interesting. And I hope, Jay, you've got your answer. I will continue with my questions about efficiency and mirroring organizations already hard. Doing governance as efficiency management seems a conservatory activity. What's your take on it? Is governance still relevant today? Is efficiency management something important? And what do you usually do in this space?
So when I think of governance, I think of basically the boundaries that we set in terms of access to data or to services based on the sensitive data that we have. So I've been thinking about this because it's a question that I don't get asked a lot. So for me, this is the only way I can relate to it. So I empower my team to have access to everything they need to do their job, but when it comes to user data, we have very strict policies, who has access to what. And I think it's been quite a few times that I'm not the most favorite person in the company, that I take rights away from everybody, but I think that's very important, and I'm happy to take on that role. When it comes to efficiency, in terms of some sort of velocity or numbers or something like this, like some sort of a metric that's calculated from the outside, there I am, we do look at it, of course. We try to make it in a way that it doesn't feel, how can I say this, that it doesn't make anybody feel bad. And I see velocity and estimations as a way for us to learn as a team, to uncover hidden complexity, and also to reflect back on on things we thought were possible and were not, or on how we thought things are working and they are not. So this is a conversation that we've been having. I think every 2 or 3 months we have the estimation conversation, where someone says, oh, this was supposed to be half a day, and it took me 2 hours more, and I was very stressed. And this is not what it is about, at least in our case. This is not what it is about. What it is about is when estimations are just estimations, where things get out of scope or they take longer, it should trigger a conversation. Okay, should we still invest the time in this? Does it make sense for us to prioritize this or just drop it? Or maybe we can split it into iterations and so on. For us, I think we're still quite a small tech team. And I also see it in the future. I would like to keep the team as small as possible for as long as possible, while optimizing everything we do. So focus and priorities are very important for us. It's important that where we spend our time is what has the most impact for our users. And in case we thought something is very small, but it turns out it takes 2 weeks of development effort, definitely should trigger a conversation. Hey, does this really make sense? Could we use the 2 weeks somewhere else? I would say these are the conversations that we are currently having. What we are recently starting is also together as a product development team, looking at our velocity, or like our sprint completion, not from a rationalizing why things are not done perspective, but from with a curiosity angle, to see, we thought we could do all this stuff, but it didn't work. Maybe next week we can just have a little bit less, and if necessary, you can always take new stuff in. So this is the only 2 ways that I could relate to your question. I guess it's different than in the big companies.
Which leads me to other questions. The first one, are these conversations about estimations and do we invest too much in it and should we stop, or things like this, hard or easy? Close question, like hard or easy? Do you think employees take it hard or easy?
It's a learning process for sure. We have teams that do it very well, And we have teams that we probably still need to have the conversation 2 or 3 times. I would still like to say a little bit more than that, because I find that in product development, so in cross-functional product development teams, which is what we have, the product manager takes on this role of, because they are the ones bringing things. I don't know how to say it, kind of like somehow the leader of the team or someone that you report to, whereas I see it more that they are a team member and we achieve things together. And this is how this is the way of thinking that I'm also trying to encourage my team to see. It's like nobody's going to feel bad if I don't know, whatever ticket is not done. And it's also healthy for us to question product priorities and just things in general. If it happened also many times that we left things for second iterations and they were never prioritized before. So unless you have this like critical eye and you always ask these critical questions in the beginning, it doesn't feel good, of course, because it feels like you're questioning someone's work. But I think it's part of a healthy product development team, like the constant push and pull. They ask us questions and we ask them questions, and it should not be a one-way street.
Thank you for the answer, and I hope the audience enjoys it. Before going to the 3 questions I've seen there in chat, I have one question still related to the topic. So you said you are implicated in the entire onboarding process of the company, which I feel like, wow, that's very interesting. I've never heard that yet, but maybe I'm not asking the right questions. And then about velocity and team development team, is this something which applies only to the development, or you look at velocity at the global company picture? Every team, every department is doing this?
No, velocity and estimations is for the tech team. How we kind of measure everybody else's work is with the OKRs and the KPIs and the metrics there, which they define for themselves, and then they report, and then yeah, they are responsible for them.
Okay, and regarding decision making, because we kind of look at estimation so that we limit the work, so that they focus, as you say, is there something notable that you could say that happens at the leadership level, at the highest level of the company, like how you limit some of the work and the number of initiatives at that level? Can you share something about that?
Yeah. So one thing that we that we did from the beginning, and that I'm always trying to push for, is having an iterative approach on what we're doing.
At the highest level?
At the highest level, yes. Because in the beginning, it was me and my co-founders working on this, and they are we are right now at the highest level, right? So that's also how we built the product team. Of course, the expectations for the application changed from 3 years ago, where it was just basically text and our own design, to right now it should still look and feel a certain way. So let's say the minimum viable product changed a little bit in complexity in terms of what our users expect. But at the same time, we still question all the time, okay, for the first release, what do you really need to be there? What's the basic thing that we need to have? And then we can always extend. And what we usually do is, for example, we launched a new search functionality, and it's very, very basic for now. It took us, I don't know, a few days or something like this, a week. And what we want to do is see, okay, does anybody actually use this before we invest more time in it? Because we had the case early on when it was just the 3 of us, that me and my co-founder Ines, we spent 2 weeks on a feature that even now, 2.5 years later, we have, I think, 1 or 2 users every month using it. So basically for 2 weeks, 66% of the company worked on this thing that is used overall less than 0.0%. That's not really good effort versus impact result, right? So I always try to give this as an example, because everybody, even at the highest level, as you said, can relate to it, because we all went through it. And I think it's a very healthy way to look at things. And obviously I'm also part of the, for example, for product managers or senior product managers, I'm also part of the interview process, and this philosophy is something that I would like them to share.
I hope the audience is enjoying your answers as much as I do. I'm going to a question from Samuel. You've been from the very start. When and how did your management style change as the team grew? Was it at a particular hire or critical role hires?
Yeah. So my management style, as I said, I like to be very close to the team. And I'm also very much a people person. So I care deeply about my team. I would also say that this is, in some cases, maybe one of my weaknesses, because I get very attached to people, and then it's sometimes hard to be very objective, but it's something that I am working on. Regardless, I think people feel when you care about them, and they care about you back and about the team and about the company. So I don't see it working any other way. So this is kind of my management style. It has not changed from the beginning. Of course, with some teams, we were closer in the beginning, and then as the team grew, and then there's like a lead in place, I lost a little bit of contact. But we still try to, be very close as a team. I encourage everybody to come to the office, organize team events, things like that. These are important for me. And also because we are mostly a remote team, I think it's very important that people see people, not just these Google Meets heads that just talk about work, but actually a person that is interesting, that you can have a conversation with and have fun with. I do, in terms of my role, I also mentioned in the beginning, I don't know if it fits in the management style part. I am pushing myself out of the sprint work and everything like this. So I'm always there if they need something, but I'm not actively taking on anything. So this is something that changed. Those responsibilities I am handing over to my team.
So you keep some distance to the what happens in the sprints, but you are there for them in case.
I do, if they need me to look at the pull request or something like this, I do, but I'm not working on any of the tickets or anything like that. I help them structure them if they have questions, otherwise they do it themselves. For example, we have recently did kind of check-ins per platform where everybody can bring their questions in one place and just discuss them together with the whole team. This is something that I learned in the past year, that in one-on-ones, everybody was kind of asking the same questions and I was answering the same. So right now we're doing it together and they all learn, and sometimes we record those sessions so they have them for later on. So this is kind of how things change, maybe better time management and grouping all the questions together so that, I can also increase the impact that I have.
Okay, so I'm not taking the questions in order because I see them regarding also to the path of my questions. So I'm skipping the Rashad question to take it later. So Samuel, I hope you got your answer, and I'm going to go to the question from Stefan. How do you scale the tech and products team in order to keep up with the sales team? If that's the case, of course.
Yeah, so our sales team is definitely the biggest part of our company. What they do is they reach out to companies, see if they might be interested in a mental health support platform, have demos, and eventually bring those companies on board as our partners. In terms of, I assume your question mostly means that you see sales as a stakeholder in the product, and then their requests, how do we handle them in the product team? Because otherwise I don't see any reason why we would scale up with them. Or maybe it's the fact that if they bring on bigger companies, how does our product scale? So I can answer both questions. For the first one, in terms of them being stakeholders, still at this point, 2.5, 3 years in, the biggest issue, let's say, one of the issues is budget that prevents us from closing contracts, and the other one is that people still don't believe they need mental health support. So these are still the most important conversations that we have in the sales team. There's very little product
people like
feature.
potential customers or yeah.
Yes, people, yeah, exactly. Especially in this current climate, budget is still an issue. It's been from the beginning because we started during Corona. So this is a thing that they are discussing, or that keeps deals being pushed back. And the other one is understanding as a company if that mental health really is something that you should be investing in as an employee benefit. They bring very few requests in terms of product features. So I cannot, maybe in a few months, as we sign bigger companies, maybe something like a single sign-on would be a feature driven by sales, but mostly that's not really the case. When it comes to, if your question was more maybe meant for scaling or the scalability of our product, we actually have everything built on serverless on the back end. So scalability is kind of implied from the beginning. So on the tech side, we could have like 100 times more users tomorrow and everything would still be working. We would, of course, have scaling issues in other departments, like the psychology department would need to hire a lot more therapists and so on. But when it comes to the product, scalability is already built in. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I have so many questions about what you said, especially about during the COVID crisis, that people were not accepting there are mental challenges. That's interesting, but I think we will do that after this CTO talk. We're going to another direction. So I hope, Stefan, you got your answer. Do you have any resources to share, like recommendations? I have a question from someone anonymous. What resources did you use to learn about management and how to lead a team?
Yes, I did get quite a few, especially for, so my first experience as a team lead was at Freeletics, where I started from the beginning with a team of 12. So that was quite interesting and quite a lot of stuff for me to learn. I don't remember the names of the books, but afterwards I can Google for it and then send you the links and you can share it in the presentation afterwards. But books focused on coaching. How do you, as a manager, empower your team to become the best? How do you, as a manager, find the right place for people? Sometimes the right place for people is not in your company and it's somewhere else. And I think it's very important to understand that, because everybody needs to, like, I think everybody should be happy with what they do at work. You spend so much time at work. It doesn't make sense for anybody that you are, unhappy, or that it doesn't bring you joy.
Seems a lot in a personal development space first, then working with you first, and then working with others, like empowering teams. This is what I get from the answer.
I do read a lot. So psychology is also a very personal topic to me, and also personal development, because I think as you start taking care of people, you also need to learn a lot about yourself. You need to see your biases, and you need to see, why do I like this person better than the other one? Maybe it's just my, my bias, my subjective bias, and that there should be no place for that. Of course, we cannot take it out completely because we're human, but it's important to see. And also, there's a lot of resources on how to give feedback. And for example, for me in the beginning, difficult conversations were, I'm not a fan of it, but I think it's very important to say to be transparent about where people stand, and kind of not leading them on and not just saying nice things so that they know nice things. I will search for all the books and then send it over to Cornel, and he can put it in the description for the event.
Yeah, we can build a space that we share with the audience then, and your recommendations. I think that would be, everyone will enjoy that. So I'm going to a question about the CTO role. There was one. What was your most difficult moment as a CTO? What made the difference in the moment?
Okay. What was very tough was the beginning. I think a lot of founders in startups, or I have not heard many founders talk about this. You usually have talks focused more on the success, and it looks like it was all easy, and then overnight you got so much money and everything was working out. For me, so the first 8 months, there was no salary and also no end in sight. So you don't know when, when is it going to happen that someone believes in you and you close your first funding round. And those were tough moments. And this would have been part of my advice for the end, but I'm going to say it now anyways. I found it helpful to have a motivation that's not related to the company succeeding. So from the beginning, when I decided to do this, because you have no guarantee that things are going to work out. So from the beginning, I thought to myself, okay, this is a great learning opportunity for me. And even if I work on this 1 year and live off my savings and nothing comes out of it, I would have learned so much. And that for me, that was worth it. And I kept coming back to this. Also, we had customers from the beginning since we launched. And we started with the one-on-one sessions, and the feedback that we had in the first 4 months was something that also kept all three of us going through these more uncertain times in the beginning. Which it's just when you see that someone says, okay, you changed my life, or you made my day better, or I learned so much more about myself now, that really made a difference for us, and it really pushed us forward. And afterwards, I would say that it's always something. So as a co-founder, than as a CTO maybe, there's always new things that you didn't think you would have to deal with. And as the team grows and the company develops further, there's always new challenges, and some are more difficult than others.
Wow, yeah. I hope this will be replayed, by the way. So let's share this message as much as we can. There was this interesting philosopher in a French one, Felix Guattari, talking about the three ecologies, like and the fact that to have the environment, well, you need to take care of the social ecology, and then the individual ecology, so the mind, and it seems like you are taking care of this foundation with what you do and with the company, and so that we can have a real positive impact, because there's no ecological positive impact if we are not individually well. So thank you for this. A question about architecture: what approach do you take to manage technology portfolio? How decision for onboarding new technology is taken? Is there any architect role in the company, or any architect roles? You can go fast on this.
Yes. General strategy from the beginning was build as little as possible. So that's why we have everything on serverless Lambda. And also we're using a lot of managed services from AWS. So authentication is from them, the DynamoDB, the managed database, as many managed services as possible, so that we only focus on building the business logic that we need, that sets us apart. We don't have time to implement our own authorization mechanism or something like this.
Okay.
When it comes to new technologies, as I said before, our philosophy is do only things that have an impact on our user and the quality of the product that we have. So if there is something that would, I don't know, reduce the response time by 50%, for sure, we would look into it. If it's just a new technology for the sake of introducing a new technology, that's for now probably out of the question.
Okay, so it seems you favored, in a sense, speed and reuse lots of these services, especially in the serverless space, and maybe eventually less flexible in some situations, but and it turns out very well for you.
Yes, for us right now, the serverless has been, so first of all, security-wise, which is an aspect that I have been taking care of from the beginning, and it was very, very important for me. Last year, we did a pen test, which turned out quite well, and also had a well-architected review with someone from an AWS consultancy. And I don't know if anybody did this well-architected review, it should take they have like 3 or 4 or 5 hours. For us, I think half of the things we didn't have to go through, because everything that's related to networks and VPNs and so on is completely irrelevant for us. And so there were quite a few times throughout the past 3 years where the approach on the architecture was validated for us. Of course, it's not the right answer for everybody, but for us right now, it works quite well. And as I said, we didn't have to worry about any sort of scaling issue. If sales manages to sign tomorrow, I don't know, Oracle or something, I don't know, something like a really big company, it would just work. And that's a very nice feeling to have. And I think it's also for our customers, when they have all these security questions, it's also maybe a relief to know that a lot of our infrastructure that has access to sensitive data is managed by AWS.
So, dear audience, I hope this is helpful for you as well. And if there are some large companies, don't worry, Catalina can take good care of it. So, question from Mihai about regulation like GDPR, data residency, HIPAA. Do you leverage any particular features from Amazon, or do you roll your own? In a sense, you've said a few words about it. So how do you manage compliance with data protection regulations? So
yes. So yeah, as I said, we do use a lot of managed services from AWS. They come with obviously their own certification, and they are all GDPR compliant and so on. We do take care of extra things on top of it. So I don't know, backups and encrypting all the S3 buckets, and so everything that we need to take care of in the infrastructure. We don't currently have, for example, an ISO 2701 certificate or a HIPAA compliancy certificate, but I regularly look at the description of those certifications and see where do we fall short and what's something that's, let's say, it's the most pressing for us. So obviously everything that we need to do on the technical side, vulnerabilities, SSL, OWASP, all these kind of things, that they are all in place. And we do regular checks on our infrastructure, not so much on the, let's say, documentation side that all these certifications need. But it is, I do check them from time to time, and I use them as a starting point for improvement on our infrastructure and security, and making sure that we stay compliant everywhere and we don't miss anything.
Catalina, so many questions, so little time. Yeah, very difficult to choose. I'll go to the first one related to the infrastructure. How did you start building the core infrastructure and setting a DevOps foundation? Was it from scratch, and how involved were you in the code? Because I think it's linked with what you said. So
yeah. Yes. So I did, before Nilo, I worked as a mobile developer, but I was in contact with AWS. I was studying for the certifications and stuff. And with some guidance from my previous boss and also from my previous colleagues that had more experience on this topic, I decided to go for this serverless infrastructure. And what I did in the beginning, I sketched everything out and I went around and validated my architecture with them. So whoever would talk to me that had more experience in this and could give me some advice, I would go and ask them, like, what would you do different?
People from Amazon.
Not people from Amazon, my previous CTOs, my previous bosses,
okay.
my previous DevOps colleagues, backend developers, and so on. There were some of them that said, oh, I would not do this. I think this I would just go for a normal server. And I took their concerns into account, but I still took my own decision. So I did set up the architecture from the beginning. There were definitely, since the beginning until now, a lot of iterations and a lot of improvements. So what I set up, like what we had 3 years ago, was very basic, and since then it evolved a lot. And there were also a lot of learning things for me, like optimizing DynamoDB queries and optimizing cold start on Lambdas and all these kind of things that you anyways find out as you go. You cannot just build it from the beginning. So yeah, I did this. First, it was just like clicking in AWS around and setting up all the infrastructure. And then later on, like 4 or 5 months into the project, also using infrastructure as code with Terraform. And right now we have everything there.
I hope the answer was useful. We are not finished yet. Dear audience, there is already a link on the chat for you after this session to do a short 4-question survey to give us feedback on it. Before going to the next question, how much do you agree with technology strategy is business strategy?
How much? Sorry, I was
how much
very
do you
fast.
agree technology strategy is business strategy?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand how tech works, but in our case, business strategy trumps technology strategy.
Okay, but there's no technology strategy apart from business strategy. It's the same. It's included in the business strategy, or
yeah,
is it
we can call it like this. Yeah, maybe it's derived from the business strategy, or it's supporting the business strategy, something like this. It's not directly included in there because yeah, what we do is much more important than how we do it. But for example, dealing with sensitive data is what drives the technology vision, because we need to be very secure and we need to be very safe. So yeah, I would say it's kind of the same.
Okay. Can you share with us a striking experience being a woman in technology? Someone is asking.
Yes, so as I said, I'm a very big advocate for women in tech. I try to get as many as possible in my team. I get asked a lot, how does it happen, because other team or managers never find them. In my first year at Nilo, when I didn't have a team yet, I missed working with people. So I volunteered a lot on mentoring platforms, and mostly women came out to reach out to me for a session and ask for advice. And it's quite impressive to see that first of all, there's so much self-doubt, and there's always like, I should do one more course before I apply, I should do this one more thing, we never feel like we're ready, and so on. And I also had a guy that applied for a mentoring session with me, and he also did a career change. And I applied for 100 companies, they all rejected me, but I'm still applying. And the difference was quite big. And I think it's important for everybody that's hiring in tech to understand this situation when it comes to women in tech, that we only apply if we feel like 100% filling every single item in the job description, and we never really pump ourselves up with the things that we know how to do or something like this. So what I try to do is search for people that on paper they look like they have much less experience, but they have such high potential, and this is kind of how I was building the team. Of course, there's a lot of stories that I can share about how, the bias and so on. But I can only say that having women in a tech team makes a big difference, and the atmosphere is completely different. Nothing against guys, but it's a bit more relaxed and a bit more supportive. And I really appreciate having them on board.
Thank you for sharing. This seems very inclusive in a sense. So it spans over, it seems, the woman in tech. Very interesting. I hope it's anonymous user, so I cannot thank enough. So Catalina, I think we can, as for our guests, spend a lot more time on questions. We are at the end of the session. You've kind of shared already things that I think are useful for everyone, or your thoughts about it. So, but please recall that what is one thing that you'd like the audience to remember about your session, about your message for them?
So I would try to relate to those members of the audience that maybe are in the same situation that I was 2 or 3 years ago, when either you're thinking of building something or you're at the very beginning and you have an idea, to just encourage you to find your motivation, as I said, behind or beyond money or success, but something that's important for you, because that's going to be the thing that holds when things go tough. And the second part is that when you look at companies, at startups later on, you always see like this big system with a lot of services and so on, but nobody started off that way. So everybody started with the first line of code and just creating an empty project and then slowly figuring things out. And I think having trust in, or like keeping this in mind, that nobody builds the perfect solution from the beginning. And something that really helped me a lot was reaching out to people with more experience than me. You would be surprised to see how many people that have a lot of experience are willing to help you out. So there's a lot of mentoring platforms that you can reach out to. And I got to talk to data experts and security experts and DevOps experts, and they were all for free, just giving me their advice. And I think that's really, really valuable. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Dear audience, unfortunately, this is the time we've booked for our session. Catalina, thank you so much for what you said. I hope the audience appreciated. This is going to be available in replay. And Catalina, I hope we'll see you again at the CTO Talk.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And in case you still have questions, just feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I would be more than happy to answer. Thank you so much for having me. It has been really, really nice, and for all your questions.
It's a pleasure. Bye, Catalina. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.